Welcome to another Tidbits from the Road, coming to you live, recorded, from I-71 North in lovely North Central Ohio. I wanted to kick off this show first by giving a thanks to you folks out there. We've hit our first Patreon goal, and I want to give just a special recognition to everyone out there that's a patron. Super appreciate you guys. So awesome that you guys enjoy what I'm putting out there. Really appreciate all your support. So I'm going to work on getting I'm probably going to go with Libsyn for the provider that I promised for the goal. SoundCloud's been nice. They've been adequate, serviceable, but I think Libsyn is going to be a far better provider. They are built to handle podcasts, where SoundCloud is more intended to be for musical artists than it is to be for podcasts. While it works for podcasts, it's not really what it was designed for. So I'm going to be working on getting that set up. As I mentioned in the Patreon, thank you to folks. Bear with me on this. This should be a very simple thing because I syndicate the podcast using FeedBurner. So it should be as simple as loading the library of shows up to Libsyn and then switching that link in FeedBurner, and bam, there we go. I do work in IT for a living, and I also know very much that these things that seem to be the simplest things in the world can also be the most giant pains in the butt you've ever had to deal with. So I'm hoping that this goes smooth. Please bear with me if it doesn't, because changing your podcast hosting provider is a fairly big deal in the podcasting world there, getting the back catalog over and making sure everything shows up the way it's supposed to. I'm hoping that the way that I'll handle this is simply load the catalog to the new provider, record a new show, switch the link, make sure the new show shows up, and then voila, I know I've got what I'm supposed to have. So hopefully it's that simple. On the last show, I noticed, and actually helpfully super patron Lee Sweet also provided some feedback, that the audio was not the best on the last episode. He did provide a helpful suggestion to grab myself a lav mic to be able to handle that. Unfortunately, though, I do not have the hardware that other vloggers out there have. I'm just rocking a Hero 5 session here. That's all I got at the moment. In the future, hopefully I'll be able to pick up some better equipment and be able to provide some better sound. But in the meantime, he did note that when I still had the Civic, the position you're seeing this being filmed from now seemed to work a lot better. The Civic did have a little plastic piece right about here that the rearview mirror actually slotted into. The rearview mirror wasn't affixed to the windshield like many cars it is, and that little piece of plastic there worked for a perfect spot for me to stick a sticky mount for the GoPro to be able to record from. And it was great because it was in a spot that was fairly close to me, and it was a rock solid spot to stick it. However, now that I've got the Tesla, there simply is not there's not a hard plastic spot for me to affix the camera to. Now, I recognize this in the purchase process, and even before that, because I thought to myself, well, if I was driving my wife's car one day, what do I do to be able to still record if I wanted to? And so the suction mount that I'm using right now is the solution to that. I have been mounting it over on that side, but there was a lot of road noise on that side, and hopefully pulling it away from the window will, the driver's side window, will help out with the road noise that we were picking up. We'll find out. So with the show notes out of the way, I wanted to dive into, I've got, as of right now, 1,553 electric miles driven, which have been fantastic. But some of the nuances and things that maybe I didn't expect from owning the Tesla. First and foremost, I knew at some point somebody would roll up next to me and want to test it. I didn't expect who I got. So I figured, some guy with a souped up hatchback, or maybe a muscle car, or maybe even another exotic car, would be the person that rolls up again next to me and decides they want some. Not what I got. Instead, what I got was a guy in a Ford F-150 with also temporary tags that decided he wanted some, which is funny because I wasn't sure he did at first, and I'm very conservative on this because I don't want to just be jumping off the line the second somebody pulls up next to me. So what happened, I was getting off of the highway, and there's a stoplight, of course. So this guy went flying by me to begin with because it was a 2-lane off-ramp, and it happened to be that light turned red as he was trying to make it through it, and it was red enough that he decided, I better not try and go through this. So he slows down, and I'm in the other lane because I was going to eventually need to make a right, and I slow down, and I slow down and pull up and stop. And the guy was driving aggressively to begin with, so that was my first thought of, okay, well, I wonder about this guy. So I pull up to the stoplight, and then I notice out of my peripheral vision that he creeps up and stops hard. He creeps up a little more and stops hard, and he finally puts his front tires right on the trigger for the stoplight and stops hard again. And even at that point, I'm like, we'll just see if he fires that engine up or not, because you never know. And I really didn't expect an F-150 to try and one apiece. So light turns green, and I originally just kind of feather it out of there, and then I hear bah! Out of the corner, out of my left side here, and I'm like, okay, so I guess he does want a piece here. And then I just flew by him. Yeah, it's got a V8 in it, but it does not matter. It's not electric. So yeah, from 0 to 70 pretty quickly, and he ended up peeling off and turning away. But yeah, the first person to decide that they wanted to try the Tesla since I've had it ended up being a giant F-150. Go figure. The next bit of ownership has been the surprising amount of grief that I've been catching from my wife about basically not really wanting her to drive the car. Now, maybe at some point I will take you around her car and give you a tour of the hole in her car that she put there by hitting someone, or the general, I'm searching for a word here, banged upness of her car as a result of her driving. So if you saw her car, you and anyone else would understand my hesitancy to put her behind the wheel of this car, especially when my wife is not the biggest fan of technology. Technology is a tool for her, but that tool is not always something that she plays nicely with and complains about. So when you've got basically a rolling monument to technology, again, you understand my hesitancy to, well, that's fun. So this just happened. I didn't realize this was a feature, but apparently it is. I just took an off-ramp to go from 71 North to 271 North. I was fully confident in the car being able to handle what I feel is a very slight turn, but there were arrows at speed at 65 miles an hour. Car automatically slowed down on the off-ramp. I vaguely remember hearing something about that being a feature, but I did not have Autopilot turned on. I actually turned Autopilot off there. I don't know if you caught the dings. because there was a split for the lane that I was in. I wanted to make sure that we followed the right lane. So even with just TAC enabled, it auto slowed down. It dropped back from 65 to about 58 there, and then took the turn and then sped back up. That's really interesting. I didn't realize that was a feature. Sorry, a little bit of an interjection there of a feature that I didn't know the car even had, because there was no reason otherwise for the car to slow down. There was nobody in front of me. So anyway, finally, after some badgering and even my wife's co-workers giving her some crap that I had not let her drive this car yet, yesterday I finally said, all right, Carrie, let's drive the car. So got her into the driver's seat, set her up, set her driver profile up so that she can get into it, because frankly there are times when we're taking our trips around that she's going to need to drive this car, because it's the primary car we take. Normally it used to be her car because it was the nicer car. Now that we have the electric car that does not burn gas, this will be the primary car we're taking places. So get her set up, and the biggest thing, there are two big things I'm worried about with her. One is her getting used to the regenerative braking, and that did prove to be something that she struggled with. And so if you notice the blip in the video and figure out that it's a little bit later in the day, that's because the battery on my camera ran out in the middle of trying to record. Anyway, I was talking about the two things that concern me in having my wife drive the Tesla, and the first of those being the regenerative braking being just a world of difference when coming from your standard everyday car. Hey, you want to slow down? You just let off the gas entirely, and that is not the way you do it in a Tesla, at least one that has standard regenerative braking enabled. You got to feather that off, and I gotta say, I was fairly proud of her. By the end of the day driving it yesterday, she was starting to get the hang of dealing with that conversion. Because I did tell her that we could put it on low regen, which would be more like the car that she's used to, but I really didn't want to, because then that's detrimental to the range of the vehicle. So by the end of the day, she was getting used to that. The other concern I have with her driving the car is the Model S she's a big girl, let's say, and compared to my wife's current car and my previous car, which was the Civic that she was plenty used to driving if she had to, those are far more nimble, far more compact vehicles than this car is. And getting used to the large front end and wide body of this car might be a little bit of an adjustment period for her. And again, especially from the love that her car has received from various reasons, I'm understandably a bit hesitant to have her drive the car. But she did well yesterday, and kudos to her in driving. Does not mean I am not nervous if she's driving the car, but I feel a little less nervous in how she handled yesterday. I think we'll end this episode of Tidbits from the Road with my top 3 things that I enjoy about this vehicle. The first and foremost, we'll go in reverse order here. Number 3 being just how incredibly silent this car is. I've had multiple people comment on that just in taking them for rides and whatnot, that just they're flabbergasted at how quiet the car is. And yeah, not realizing that the second you step into the vehicle, the car is basically on, other than a formality of pressing the brake pedal, which truly is a formality. But the fact that the car just starts moving and it's undetectable that you're ready to go has been more than a couple folks have been like, the car's on. So I do enjoy that. I enjoy being able to just kind of slowly creep around parking lots and whatnot and not be noticeable to anybody, which is the exact opposite of a lot of the purpose of many vehicles on the road, is to make as much noise as they possibly can, which I find to be a detraction from a vehicle anymore, rather than something that makes me want it. Number 2 is the relentless acceleration that this car provides. I think that's the best adjective I can give for how a Tesla accelerates when you put metal to floor. A good example of this is every single time, my kids for a while I've asked them, oh, you want to go fast? And in the Civic I'd do that, and I'd step on it and they'd be amused for a second. But since I got this car, my youngest is 3, and when I put the pedal down with this car, my youngest giggles uncontrollably every time I do it. Not unlike myself, although I don't giggle anymore, but I do have a big smile on my face. But that is my second favorite feature of this vehicle. And the number 1 favorite feature of this vehicle, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is Autopilot. Having Autopilot, especially now that I have a 70-mile one-way commute, give or take, it is just the most glorious thing in the world, especially given the fact that I'm driving into Cleveland traffic, where stop and go is a given every single morning that I go in. Speed up here a little bit, get out of the way of everybody. It's a given every single morning that I come in, and to just not have to worry about that, depressing the accelerator, foot off, brake, whatever the deal happens to be with the mess that is Cleveland traffic every single morning, it is just so liberating. I do feel like that when I get to work, I am very much less angry, very much less stressed, because as long as I get out the door on time, which is more mornings than not, way more mornings than not, I know when I'm going to arrive at work, and I know that, hey, it's going to be 90 minutes getting into work, and that my car is going to basically take care of that for me for the most part. And, the last, almost literally the last mile, I'm going to be on the hook for, getting off the highway. But by and large, it just de-stresses my commute in ways that I cannot describe if you have not had a chance to try Autopilot. So that's going to be it for this episode of Tidbits from the Road. I do hope you've enjoyed what you've been seeing. If you do, please make sure you give a like on YouTube for the episode. And if you really like what you've been seeing, make sure you give me a subscription there. That'll give you instant access when I put these out to all these shows, as well as the flagship show, Tesla Tidbits. If you super enjoy what you've been seeing, I do wish you to give a look at the patreon.com/Tesla Tidbits. And thanks so much to I've had an influx of super patrons here lately. Super big thanks to all of you guys out there that have joined up at the super patron level. And you'll see all those folks. Actually, you're kind of inconveniencing me. I gotta make an entirely new show card because of all of you. I will take that every single day. I will take that. So look for all those folks at the end of the show. They are definitely helping out. And as to the rest of you patrons out there, I do very much appreciate you guys as well. As I said at the top of the show, we crossed the $115 per month first goal of the Patreon. And I signed up today at lunch for the new podcasting hosting provider. So I hope to have that ready for tonight, but I'm no guarantees on that one. There's some extra setup I've got to do for that I don't think we're quite ready for. But that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the show, and until I see you guys again, keep it charged and hit the road.